that, or you can just turn off your camera, which is easier. But yeah, guys, we are not 100 people in here, so if anyone has a question during the tasting, feel free to let me know. First sample is the Dominican Republic 2006. But otherwise, if you have some questions in between, just let us know in the chat, or unmute yourself and we can take the questions as they come. Otherwise, we'll do a couple of small breaks in between where we'll try and ask you as well if there are any questions. Okay?
Okay. So the first sample is number 1 on the list.
So the first rum, number 1 on the list, SBS Dominican Republic 2006. Bottled at 59% in a total of 282 bottles. So everything we're going to be drinking tonight are single cask. So that means it's only the contents of one wooden barrel. So usually when we do this, we get around somewhere between 150 to around 300 bottles. So everything is highly limited. So that also means if you find something you like, well, you need to buy it quite quick, because usually they sell out pretty fast as well. The good thing is that a lot of the barrels we are bottling is, well, some of them might have sister casks that we might bottle again at some point, or they might have something similar. So if you find a specific style, you might be lucky that we'll bottle more. We have here in Denmark in our warehouse, we have around 2,000 barrels right now, and we are expanding that every year. So there will be more and more barrels coming in, and hopefully that also means more in SBS, more and more of that being bottled. So, but let's have a taste of the first one. Give it a go. Remember, they are all high in alcohol, so drink small sips at least to begin with, because these first sips can be rather rough on your mouth and on your palate, especially when it's the first drink of the day or the first sip of the day. So take it gentle to begin with. If you think it is a little bit too rough, you can always add a couple of drops of water just to bring the ABV down a little bit. It is both going to help on the sharpness of the alcohol, but it can also help to actually unleash a little bit more flavor in some of them. So you can force it to open up just a little bit more by adding a few drops of water. But yeah, let's take a trip to the Dominican Republic first. So the rum was distilled back in 2006. It's molasses-based rum. It's distilled on a big column, and it comes from a distillery called AFD, or Alcoholes Finos Dominicanos. Now, the current distillery they work with has only been in operation since 2008. They basically tore down the old distillery and built up a completely new one. So today they only distill from cane juice, but in the past everything was molasses. This specific rum has aged first for 12 years on the Dominican Republic. After that, it was transferred to our warehouse in Denmark, where it received a further 4 years of aging, and all have been in an ex-bourbon cask. So it's primarily tropically aged, which also adds basically extra aging. If you've heard a little bit about aging before, you have a lot of people talking about tropical aging versus continental aging. And basically that comes down to the weather and the climate, because heat is one thing. Another thing is what we call moisture in the air. These things have a big impact on how the aging takes place. So you have some people actually saying that tropical aging works 2 to 3 times as fast as continental aging, simply because the interaction between the rum and the wood is considered to be faster under tropical conditions. I don't 100% agree with that. Actually, I don't agree with it at all. In my opinion, it's 2 different spirits. If you take a single cask of something and you take exactly the same kind of cask with exactly the same kind of rum in, and we place one of them in the Dominican Republic and one of them in my basement here in cold Denmark, you're going to have 2 rums that start off at the exact same point, but they're going to develop like that. It's basically going to be 2 completely different rums. There have been a few bottlers in the past that have actually done this experiment. Veliers probably the best known of them. They did a couple of years ago 2 different packs of Clarendon, where they had 2 different marks from Jamaica, where they had one that was aged in Jamaica and one was aged here in Europe. And they'd done the same with both marks. And if you tried both of them, you might actually know what I mean when I say it's 2 completely different rums. And you might also understand that none of them is superior to the other, because you end up with 2 different kinds of flavor. But guys, let me know what you think about the first rum now that you've had a chance to try it. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Is it boring? Is it amazing? Feel free to give me thumbs up or thumbs down, or you can unmute yourself and take part of the conversation if you're brave enough. You can even speak in German if you like. I have 2 great translators with me, so no need to be nervous.
I think the first thing is it's very surprising for Dominican rum, because it's totally different to the most we know. So first thing is don't feel like a sugar bomb. So that's the first thing, and I really like the taste of the woodness. So I think they was doing a good aging.
I think when most people think about Dominican rum, they think about heavily sweetened rum, or they think about brands like Brugal or Barcelo, which are primarily used for rum and coke. Or they might even have tried some of our own rum, like Esclavo in the past, or Cristobal, which are heavily sweetened. So yeah, most people are quite surprised when they try this. They're surprised by the amount of flavor and the depth and complexity of the flavor. I think it's a misconception for many people that what we could in the old days call Spanish style rum are very, very light and very boring. For me, some of them are very, very complex, and we're going to try it both in this one and actually also the next one we're going to taste. But for me, it starts out with like some tropical fruits, and then you get some very, very dark notes once you start sipping it. Like you get forest fruits, you start to get notes of chocolate, coffee, leather, and more wood in the background. So I think it's quite surprising how complex these rums can be, especially when we are talking about the multi-column, which usually gets a lot of shit on social media, to be fair. But guys, I hope you're enjoying it. This is a distillery that we work quite a lot with, because they also supply us with the sweetened rum we use in some of our other brands. And even, well, me and Dirk had actually, just before you came online, we had a quick conversation about charity and what's going on in the world, how we need to support each other better. And this is one of the best examples of a huge company actually doing that in their everyday life. The distillery itself is considered the most sustainable distillery in the world. And they run what we call circular economy, which basically means that if you ever get to go there to the distillery, you're not going to see like power lines or anything coming in from the outside, because they are 100% self-sustainable. Once they've cut down the sugar, pressed it for the juice, then the rest of the cane is dried. Then they use it to build fires and run turbines that create all the electricity for the distillery. Everything is reused. They have their own water sources, and everything is recycled. So it's completely sustainable. On top of that, they have what I would say is probably one of the major impacts for me from the distillery, is that they run their own foundation that is built around bringing money back into the communities. Now, the Dominican Republic is part of an island where the other half is Haiti and the one half is Dominican Republic. And if you look at how the island is, then you'll see all of the large cities are on the beachfront of the island, basically, close to the water, where all the hotels is and all of the businesses are. This is located in the middle of the country. And besides all the sugarcane fields surrounding it, it's a lot of small villages everywhere. And all these villages are, well, they're dirt poor, basically. There is not much business, there's not much money here. So they set up the foundation around 3 pillars, where the first pillar is education. So they are helping to build schools around the villages, bringing in teachers, making sure the teachers are educated and fit to educate the children, and also making sure you don't have kids that in the past basically had to walk maybe 15, 20 kilometers each day to get back and forth from school. The second pillar is health, where as well as they're building schools, they're also building medical centers. So before as well, you had to travel to the big cities to get to a doctor. Now you have doctors in every village, so you can get a checkup, you can get medication, you can get treatment. The third pillar is there to actually take care of the workers. Now, they have around 6,000 acres of sugarcane surrounding the distillery. Everything is cut by hand. Now, there are two things about hand cutting. One is actually that it is more efficient, because if you use machines, the cane is cut about 30 centimeters from the ground, where if you cut it by hand, you can come as close as 5 centimeters instead. This also employs about 800 people a year. And if we switch to machines, you could fire 90% of them and they would be out of work. And the thing here is we're in the Dominican Republic, but when it comes to work, it's not that different from Germany or Denmark. The local population, they don't want to cut cane. It's beneath them, basically. It's a shitty job that they don't want. It's like, cleaning or truck drivers. We bring in Eastern European people to Denmark to do that kind of work. And we do that in all of Western Europe. It's the same here. But instead of bringing in Dominican Republic, most of the work is done by people from Haiti. And if you know a little bit about Haiti, then sorry for my language, but they've basically been fucked and fucked and fucked all over by every major disaster you could think of. Earthquakes and hurricanes, everything. Whenever there's a hurricane coming in the Caribbean, you're going to be sure it's going to pass Haiti just to fuck them over once more. So we have 800 people where 95% of them come from there. So they're set up a part of the foundation to take care of them, because there is no such thing as pensions or retirements or anything for them. So part of it is basically set up to make sure that once they retire, they have clothes on their back, they have money in their pocket, and they have a place to stay. So here we can actually talk about money going directly back into the country to make a difference when you're drinking rum from here. And it's not just going back into the pockets of a huge conglomerate or huge corporation that's not even registered anywhere in the country, but probably have their head office in London or New York. So you can drink it with a good conscience and actually say you're doing something good when you drink this rum. And I think that is a wonderful thing, especially in this day and age. But guys, yeah, I hope you enjoyed the rum. That was a bit of, well, maybe a little bit depressing, but still positive about what's going on there. But let's get back to the rum, and let's jump straight into the next one. Wash your glass first, or bring out a clean glass. And we're going to be pouring sample number 2, which is also called SBS Panama, also 2006.
I shall just read out the comments that came in while you talked a little bit about AFD.
Please do, because I don't see them when I'm talking.
Yeah, I thought so. Jos is saying nice balance, vanilla, wood, and overall smoothness. And Nico, I'd actually call this a sweet rum. Maybe that is something important to add, because SBS is never ever sugared.
Yeah, that's true. SBS is always 100% pure rum, so there's no additives, no sweetness added to any of them. But I agree with the comment. It is a sweet rum in the sense that it has sweet flavors without being sweetened. Then it has sweet notes. But a lot of rum have that. We're going to have some Jamaicans later today, and a lot of Jamaicans have a fruitiness to them where you taste tropical fruits. And basically what happens is that when you taste fruit, that big thing up there is basically going to tell your tongue, this is sweet, because bananas or pineapples or mangoes, they're sweet. So it's the same thing that happens here, because your mind is tasting something that it remembers has a sweet flavor. And that's why you taste sweetness, even though there is no sugar in it. I think probably most of you here, well, if you drink SBS, I'm pretty sure you know a little bit about rum already. And well, what we say is that even rum is, of course, made from sugarcane. There is a general misconception in the world from, let's call them everyday drinkers or lazy drinkers, or the beginners at least, that rum is sweet because it's made from sugarcane. But no, there is no sugar left once you've done your distillation. And in fact, all alcohol in the world is made from sugar, because you can't make alcohol without some sort of sugar. But it completely disappears after we distill it. Was there more comments, Nina?
No.
Nico, if I may read out loud, still struggling with 60% ABV though. But it's also the first rum, so.
Exactly. So that's completely fair. Especially it is.
And he likes it. And he likes it, he just said.
It is the first rum, and we start off at 59%. If we had started at 40, it would have been a little bit later and we could slowly build it up. But it's like that I said in the beginning, just take it slow, take small sips. Once you take those first sips, don't swallow it immediately. Let it turn around a little bit in your mouth first, both to cover your mouth so you get a better flavor experience, but then it's also gonna, mix in a little bit with your spit, which basically also brings the ABV down before you swallow it. So that burn that you might have gotten from the first taste, you're not going to get in that way as well. But don't worry, that shock of the high ABV will be gone as soon as we add a few more. Then we're going to dull the tongue down a little bit, and you're not going to be able to feel it in the same way.
I'm not concerned.
Good, good. I'm drinking myself. Well, I'm only at 50 ABV with what I'm drinking. Unfortunately, I don't have all the same rums you're going to be drinking. So I'm going to have some of them, but others I'm just going to be drinking whatever I have next to me.
Yeah, the next one, the Panama one, is actually an edition that only was released in Germany.
Exactly.
And I didn't give one single bottle to Joshua.
No.
Not one.
So she demands I come and do a tasting for her and support her, but she couldn't send me a bottle so I could try it.
No,
it's typical.
Almost empty.
It's typical.
I learned from the best.
Oh, Thomas? No, all kidding aside, guys, let's jump into the next one, the SBS Panama 2006. We're going to go down in alcohol a little bit, and we're going to go down to 50% instead. This particular barrel made in total 298 bottles. And same as the Dominican Republic, this has been aged first 12 years in Panama in an ex-bourbon count, and then it was moved to Denmark, where it then has been aged for a further 4 years before we bottled it, just, I think 2 months ago, something like that. It comes from probably a company most of you know, because this was distilled at a distillery called Varela Hermanos, which are also known as the producers of Abuelo. So you might know that brand out there. They are, primarily known for their rum, Abuelo, outside of Panama. But if you dig in closer to Panama, they are more known for their family. They have for many, many years been one of the wealthiest families in Panama and have been involved in several kind of businesses. But at the moment, they are closer to being kicked out of Panama, because until not long ago, one of the uncles of the family, let's call him that, was the president of Panama. He got kicked out a few years ago, and he was not considered a good president, far from it. So from being one of the biggest rum brand in Panama by far, they are actually starting to be one of the smaller rum brands in Panama, because most of the big retail chains, most of the big supermarkets, they actually kicked out the brand completely and stopped selling it after he became president, because everybody hated him. So that's kind of a funny story to put next to it. So if anybody of you would like to own a distillery and you have a couple of million, burning in your pocket, I think there's a distillery for sale in Panama that is quite big and makes a lot of rum. They also have some of the biggest rum warehouses in the world, and they have something like 150,000 barrels laying there. So that should be enough for all of us this lifetime if you want it. But speaking about the rum, it's still a Spanish style rum. It's a multi-column distillate, all from molasses, aged entirely in ex-bourbon. I like Panama quite a lot. I like the flavors it gives. It has some of the same notes that the Dominican had. For me, it's a little bit more spicy, and the finish tends to last a little bit longer for me as well. It is I'd say it's one of the rums that I always have on my shelves here at home. We've done a couple of sister barrels to this in SBS in the past, and I love drinking it. My favorite rums personally are high ester, high congeners, crazy rums. But I can't drink that all day. I can have 1 or 2 glasses, maybe 3, maybe even 4 sometimes if I'm in good company. But at some point it becomes too much. The flavors becomes overpowering. And then I grab a glass of this because I think it's just extraordinary. We had more questions, Nina, coming, or?
Yeah, I replied already.
Okay.
Someone was asking where he can spend the millions.
Yeah, okay. Well, send me your email after. I'm happy to put you in contact. Just remember, there's a 5% finder's fee for me for creating the content, of course. Then I can retire.
It's very fruity.
It is very fruity.
Surprisingly, again, it's not a normal Panamanian rum.
No,
different.
Yeah, it is. And actually, I've done in Denmark. I've done a few blind tasting where I've put in this exact rum. I did it the same vintage, same aging, everything. I did it with one of the big private rum clubs here in Denmark a couple of years ago, where we did a blind tasting. I wasn't there for the tasting. I just sent it with one of the members, and it went up some very, very heavy hitters, I would say. There were several Foursquare Velier bottlings. There were several other classic Guyana Velier bottlings. There were several Hamptons, everything. And then they did a blind tasting of about 20 different bottles, all high-end, all high-priced, a lot of single casks in between, or a lot of limited editions. But when I got the final result, it was the Panama that actually won the tasting. People have this misconception about the Spanish-style rum, as we talked about before as well. They don't expect much from them. And a lot of them, when they just read the label, they will already discard it and say, nah, Dominican Republic, it's Panama, can't be good. But if you actually give it to them without them knowing, you would be very, very surprised at the comments you get from people. I've done it blind as well at several festivals. And a common thing I always hear is that people guess that this is Foursquare. Mm-hmm. And I love hearing that. But it is a common misconception that they actually have a lot of the same flavors. So if you ever have the opportunity, try and do it yourself. Pour a glass of Foursquare, pour a glass of a high ABV Panama rum, no additives, and have your husband or your wife mix up the glasses so you have no idea what it is, and then try and drink them. And you'll probably understand what I mean about it. Yep. It can be quite interesting.
You have it directly, you have it in the nose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And I know when I say it, when I say that in public and you have geeks sitting there, they usually hate me. They say, "Oh, that's not true. No, don't believe you." And then 10 minutes later, you do an experiment with them and they can't pick it out which one is which when you put them in front of them. It's quite fun to try, but it also, shows how amazing the rum world is. That even though you think a distillery or a country makes, shitty rum, or whatever you want to call it, there's much more to it. the thing is, we all need to make commercial rum. Commercial rum that we can sell in large volume. And SBS, well, we can't sell large volumes of it. If I only sold SBS, our company would not be very big. It's not. I'm not even sure that Nina would be my partner in Germany if I only had SBS. It might only be me sitting here in Denmark, and that's it. But because we do our other commercial brands like Compañero or Cristobal or Esclavo or anything else, that pays for our salaries. It pays for our rent. It pays for us to actually be able to bottle these things. Because SBS, well, there's basically not much profit in something like this. Of course, there is a profit in every bottle, but when you count in the time we spend at festivals talking about it, the price to be at a festival, us talking about it, promoting about it, doing tastings like this, then there is basically nothing left. There is no profit on a brand like this. But we do it because we are not just a company that sells rum, we are rum geeks. We love rum. We love to drink it ourselves. So, of course, we're going to bottle some of the things that we love ourselves, which is also why Nina chose this barrel for Germany, because she tried it and said, shit, no, I want that. I want to bottle that one for Germany and show people what it is. So yeah, it's love of rum, basically. Cheers.
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 And finally, we have some more quantity for Germany also on our first own whole barrel of SBS.
Usually,
it took 4 years until I got it.
Yeah, well, usually, as Nina is saying, she gets a little bit more this time. Usually, we divide SBS up by maybe 6-7 different countries. So usually, there's only like 24 or 30 or 36 bottles of each coming to Germany. So this time there's 298.
Yeah, so, and my clients always hate me.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's not only your clients, all my clients hate me as well. You know, they all say the same, give me more.
We're all on the same boat. That's great.
Yeah. And of course I want to say no, but there is no more. So it is what it is.
Christian's second rum, grapes, vanilla, a little mango maybe, grapes again, fairly sweet, a bit too tame for me. Yep. Still very nice.
Good.
And then Nico, a bit one-dimensional. First one was much richer.
It's that palate. You're already getting used to the high ABV now. Good, but guys, new glass or rinse your glass. Let's make sure we get a sip of water in between, because we're going to basically go from one style now to a completely different style. So we want to rinse the glass, we want to rinse our mouths a little bit. So make sure to drink some water, swirl it around good in your mouth, and that's get everything covered basically. And then we're getting ready to pour sample number 3. It's Jamaica, it's VPL, and it's 2009. And I'm basically going to say welcome to one of my favorite, if not my favorite distillery, actually. So we might talk a little bit more around this one because I can't stop myself, but let's see. We're going to go 2009 Jamaica. This is WPL, which is the mark of the rum. It comes from a distillery called Worthy Park that is located directly in the center of Jamaica. Now, I went to Jamaica, I think for the first time around 8 years ago by now. And I spent a month on the island, basically a combined holiday and also a chance to visit as many distilleries as I could. And in my final week there, I went to Worthy Park to my visit there, and I was blown away. I had some great visits at the other distilleries as well, but Worthy Park basically, it made me feel home. It was like coming back to family. how they treated me, how the tour was conducted, everything. It was brilliant, and I fell in love immediately. And we started importing Worthy Park and Rumbar, their own brands, into Denmark, and from there throughout Europe and parts of Asia as well. We also buy quite a lot of bulk rum from them, so both unaged rum that we put in barrels ourselves. We've also bought casks from them in the past. Some of them we've bottled as official bottlings under the Worthy Park brand, and others have been bottled under SBS, which is the one we're going to try right now, basically. It's pure ex-bourbon again. It's 59.7% ABV, and the total was around 240 bottles, if I remember correctly. 248. It's a mark that's called WPL, which signifies an ester count between 60 to 119 esters. Now, I'm guessing most of you know about esters, and if you don't, we're going to be speaking a little bit more about it later. But talking more about Worthy Park here to begin with, then for me, it is an extraordinary place. First off, it is the oldest distillery in Jamaica. The estate itself was founded as just a piece of land, a farm basically, in the year 1670, where the land was given to a lieutenant in the English army. And he was given this piece of land because of the help he did to the English king in fighting off the Spanish. Then in 1720, they started cultivating sugar, growing sugarcane. And in 1741, their written records state that they did rum distillation. Now, they expect that rum distillation has started earlier, but 1741 is the first concrete evidence there is of it. To give you an example next to it, then Appleton started in 1749, so 8 years later. Hampton started in 1752, so 11, 12 years later. So it is the oldest distillery that is still in existence. It's family owned. A local Jamaican family, the Clarks, have owned the distillery for the past 103 years, I think it is now. And it's currently the fourth generation that is managing the distillery. And first and foremost, and most importantly, it is what we call a single estate. Now, a single estate is how most of distilleries actually used to be, but none are anymore. The only single estates you find today are very, very small craft distilleries. But a single estate basically means that they do everything themselves, from grass to glass, as we call it. Basically, it means they grow their own sugarcane. They have their own sugar factory where the cane is turned into sugar and molasses. They have their own distillery where the molasses is turned into rum. They do all of their own aging, and they do all of their own bottling. So they control basically the complete part of the rum, the complete production. Most distilleries today, they don't have their own molasses. They need to buy it from other people, and most actually have to go outside of their island or their country to buy it, because most countries can't supply enough molasses for their distilleries. A lot of them actually go to Brazil, or in the past few years, a lot of them have started going to Asia. You'd be surprised how much Pakistani molasses actually ends up in your rum today, which is something you'd never think about. A lot of people can't bottle their own rum. A lot of distilleries don't even have their own aging warehouses. So a lot of this is basically outsourced, or you get everything from the outside to complete your rum. So here, speaking to the wine drinkers, or speaking about terroir, then everything here is homegrown. Everything is homemade. So everything comes from the same estate. They are Worthy Park today. Well, we know them as a distillery, of course, in Europe, because that's how we see them. That's how we see their name on bottles. But they are still primarily a sugar factory when you're in the local market. And they have won an award since the year 1968 that they are very, very proud of, which is the most efficient sugar factory in Jamaica. Now, when I was there 8 years ago, the first time, there were 7 sugar factories in Jamaica. Today, there's only 2 left. So I don't know if you're number 1 out of 2. I don't know if you can be so proud of it anymore. But back when they started winning the award, there was more than 50 sugar factories left in Jamaica. But the sugar industry is slowly dying in the Caribbean. And it's dying for several reasons. One of them is, of course, the sugar beet, that a lot of us can produce sugar everywhere else in the world now from beets. The other part is that a lot of the factories throughout the Caribbean, they never invested their earnings back into the factory. So a lot of them are not very efficient. They simply produce too little sugar from the juice. So it's become very, very bad business, and it's become too expensive to produce. That's why sugar factories are closing all over the Caribbean, and a lot of people can't supply enough molasses for themselves anymore. A good example is Guyana, which we're going to taste later, which only have 1 distillery left. They've been self-sufficient with molasses for hundreds of years, until 2 years ago. Then they had to go outside of their country to buy molasses as well. And this is happening everywhere in the Caribbean. So we got to enjoy it. And I hope you love the rum. I know I love it. It's not a classic high ester Jamaican. It has a lot more esters than the 2 rums we just had. But it's a more laid back Jamaican rum, something that's easier to enjoy and something you can easily have 3-4 glasses of without being overwhelmed by the esters. But what do you think, guys? Do you like it?
Banana, banana, banana.
Yep.
That's very typical Worthy Park. Nico thinks it's still an ester bomb. Yeah. Compared to the ones before, for sure.
Yep.
I actually like it a lot. I was trying to find a barrel that is close to the release Worthy Park had once, the 2006.
The 12-year-old?
12-year-old. That is my absolute favorite. It is getting close to that one. Still a little different, but I like it a lot. It's very typical of Worthy Park, I think.
Oh, I love Doc too, Christian. But they're miles apart. It's two different kinds of drink. But Nina, I'll tell you a small secret just between you and me, because there's nobody else here. There are rumors that there is a new 12-year-old coming soon.
Good to know.
Yeah. The rumors are so close that it should be loaded in a container quite soon.
And Germany is getting some?
Well, if they're lucky, then they might get 5 or 6 bottles, but let's see.
Dirk, you and I?
Yeah, we take some.
Yeah. I already promised Dirk, so we'll get them, don't worry.
Okay.
No, there should be plenty if they follow through with what I've been told. So there should be plenty enough for everybody. But let's see what happens. But guys, going from Jamaica, let me know if you have any questions about the rum you're drinking, or the distillery, or the island. We are going to be drinking a little more Jamaican again later in the tasting, so we will come back to the island, and I'll tell you a little bit more about rum production and the island in general.
And we also have the whole barrel of this one in Germany. Yes.
So you got 2 barrels this time.
Yep.
Just remember, that means you can't complain for another 6 months then.
Not happening.
No, I know.
But I'm missing the wording German edition.
No, look.
It's
Around
small.
Yeah, it's not big enough. Yeah, I agree, it's not big enough. It also should explode when you open it. Fireworks.
Yeah.
You can get that for your next one.
Okay.
But guys, we're gonna get ready to drink rum number 4, and I'd say we're going from my one favorite rum country to my other favorite rum country, because I have 2 countries that are very, very dear to me. And we just visited Jamaica. Now we're gonna go to Guyana, as we briefly mentioned about the molasses as well. And we're gonna have the SBS Guyana 2001 SWR. Again, single cask strength 54.1%, 206 bottles. Now, if you don't know about SWR, then basically we're going to be drinking something that is considered legendary, basically. Now, this comes from the only distillery that's left in Guyana, which is called DDL, or Demerara Distillers Limited. Now, we don't have to go back many years to find more distilleries in Guyana. And if we go back like 70 years, there were 30 distilleries left in Guyana, but all of them slowly closed. Now, all of the stills that were located at some of these distilleries, instead of just shutting them down, selling them for scrap, or just leaving them to rot, a lot of the most important and best stills were moved from the distillery. So once one distillery closed, some of the equipment went to another distillery. And when that closed, it left again to a new distillery. And it kept going like that. Also, what happened is not only the stills moved, but also some of the recipes for the rum making. So specific rum recipes to make a specific style of rum was passed from one distillery to another. So the rum we're going to be trying right now is actually an old recipe that came from a distillery called Skeldon. Is on the very eastern part of Guyana, very, very close to a river, where just across the river, you have Suriname, a completely different country. So it's completely opposite, basically, of the capital, and it's basically just a small village. I was lucky enough to travel there a couple of years ago, and the old sugar factory is still standing. It's falling to pieces, and I remember when I got there, and of course I wanted to get in. They had a big guard standing out front, and everything was blocked. And I kindly asked him if he would allow me to just go in and have a few pictures, and I was kicked away very, very quick. I then just simply went around back because, well, the guard was out front, so let's have a look. And somebody forgot to close the back gate. So I went in, I took my pictures, and I walked around for an hour until another guard saw me, and then they locked me up for half an hour. Started asking me questions, what are you doing? Delete all your pictures, blah, 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 so on, until my driver came and rescued me, and fortunately I got away with everything without any problems. But Skeldon today is become legendary because there was an Italian guy, a lot of you probably know, Luca Gaggano, that under his brand Velier bottled 1973 and a 1978. I think the last one of these came out about, 10 years ago. Back then, they were bottles that sold for 100 euros, 80 euros. I think the last price I saw online is that a bottle was close to go for 20,000 pounds.
But it's interesting because when I opened my bar in Berlin, the Rum Club, the original one, we had bottles of that, and the price was around about 70, 80 euros.
Yeah.
But at this point, it's back 30, 14 years ago, there was really nobody like it.
And nobody wanted to buy them.
Yeah.
Nobody bought them. They were standing on the shelf, and nobody bought them. But it since became legendary. Now, we were lucky a few years ago that we found a big batch of barrels, and we started bottling them. So this is one of those barrels. We bottled quite a few of the vintage 2001. We also bottled a couple of 97s as well. But I think actually the 2001 is the best of them, where the 97 got way too woody. But basically what you're drinking is liquid history. And there was a question I saw in the comments that, where is it distilled? Well, this was distilled at DDL. It was distilled on the Saval column still, and not one of their wooden pot stills, but still one of the stills they consider heritage or legendary stills. And those are, well, the Saval, the Enmore, the Port Moran, and the Versailles. Those are what they call their heritage or the legendary stills. that was moved around from different distilleries before they all ended up here. Now, SWR, the mark itself on the rum, is a little bit fun, I'd say, because Guyana has a very, very rich history of rum, but not many people know about it. And not even at the distillery itself, there are not a lot of people who actually know their own history. So when I went there to visit them, I actually bought some SWR that we shipped back home. We also shipped quite a bit of it unaged that we are aging right now in Denmark. And when I asked them what the mark means, they all say, well, it means Skeldon white rum, SWR. And of course, that makes a lot of sense if you buy it white, but this is the rum you're drinking right now is not white. Then when you go to the distillery or the old sugar factory, then you actually learn it, because the sugar factory and the distillery was opened by a guy called William Ross. So when you go there, you will see Skeldon William Ross written everywhere. So that is where the mark comes from. Nobody knows how it tasted originally.
Yep.
We have no idea if what we're drinking today is anywhere close to what they actually distilled at Skeldon. But for me, this is an extraordinary rum. Now, I know it's difficult today because, well, we're doing a class and we're going to have a lot more rum after this. But I always recommend that when you drink this rum, you pour your glass and pour yourself a healthy pour. Then nose it a little bit, have a sip, but then take your glass and put it away. Cover the glass, just put a piece of paper on top like that. Then leave it for half an hour. After that, come back and taste it again. The difference is huge. That air that's left inside of the glass is slowly going to do oxidation. Basically, think about red wine, where you want to open the bottle up before you want to drink it, or you decant it and you leave it for half an hour to breathe, because it's going to open up the wine. Exactly the same thing happens with a lot of rum. And this is one of the rums where you can really, really taste a massive difference. So if you have the time, the opportunity to do that, then try and do it, because you are basically going to be trying two completely different rums, where after half an hour, it becomes more mellow, becomes easier to drink, it becomes smoother, but the flavors are so much more powerful that you're going to be tasting a lot more. So it really makes a huge difference. So if you have the opportunity, try it. Try it at home. If you have, well, any high ABV rum, basically, you can try it with. Anything that has a lot of character, a lot of power, a lot of flavor, you can do it with. But specifically this one, or old Guyana rum in general, it really does do wonders for it.
My gas invoice also works on top.
If what?
The gas invoice also works.
Yes, of course. Of course. And if you burn the invoice after, it smells even better. Trust me. Especially when it's gas. Trust me. We use gas at our warehouse. I don't like gas.
Good rum.
Yes.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
Guys, what do you think? Do you like it, Andreas?
Yes.
What do you think?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's very good Guyana.
Well, Niklas says it's too sweet.
Okay.
Yeah, some sweetness for sure.
Yeah, but I think it's not really sweet. It's total different style of rum, and what you said before, it's legendary. Myself was when all the Jamaican things coming out, I'm missing rum from Guyana.
Yeah.
3-4 years because I was only on the Jamaican way.
Yeah.
And then I had a tasting with some friends, and everybody was talking about REV and things like that. And so I start again drinking Guyana rum.
Yeah.
And then I was realizing what I missed all the time. So you have to, and it has to do with mood. So sometimes you like more this style, and the next day maybe more the Jamaican style, but it's definitely one of the best.
Yeah.
But
yeah, the mood is important, and as well, who are you drinking with? You know, Dick, whenever we see each other, we drink daiquiris straight away.
Yes,
that's what we do. But yeah, it very much depends on the people you're with when you're drinking as well, and what kind of an atmosphere in the mood you're in. But yeah, Guyana never fails me, that's for sure. And we are going to have 2 more drinks of Guyana after this. So I hope you like the style. I hope you like the flavor and the profile. But it is going to be 3 rather different rums as well. But yeah, guys, are you in love with it, same as I, or do you hate it, or?
So Patrick is saying, I think a bit too much wood.
Yep. Fair enough. Let it breathe.
Yes. Right. He says after 1 hour, maybe.
Yeah, but Patrick, if you do have a fresh glass and you haven't finished it, try and put it aside, and then come back to it and taste it again after we've had the next rum. It might make a difference.
Yep.
And for you, Nicolas, we're going to try and get more rough on you. Don't worry. But yeah, let's have a sip of water. Let's rinse our glasses, and we'll slowly get ready for the next one. So we're continuing with Guyana, and we're going to have what I think is sample number 5. If I remember correctly. Remember,
it's number 5.
I'm having a glass every time you're having one. So if I start to mumble or anything, you know why? Because everything I'm drinking here is also a high ABV. But we're going to have SBS Guyana 1999, or comes from Outflucht, which is an old distillery as well that was in Guyana. This was distilled on the PM, or the Port Morant double wooden pot still. I think one of you mentioned it in the comments earlier. It's again thank you. It's again a single cask, 62.6%, and a total of 156 bottles. So a lot less bottles than the other ones we've been trying, and it's for that simple reason that this is from 1999. It's 23 years old, and the Angels have been a lot rougher with this one. They've had a lot, or it could be me in the warehouse. It's been doing a couple of tastings. You never know. But let's pour it, and let's have a sip of it. So as I mentioned, this was distilled at the Port Morant still. This is probably the most legendary still in the world. I hope all of you know the basics of a pot still and how it looks. This is a double wooden pot still. So basically 2 pot stills that are combined, where the line arm from the first one goes into the next, and then that line arm goes into the condenser. All of the sides of them are wood. So the only copper part you have is the line arm and a small part in the still where there's a spiral. But all of that, then the mash and the wash is covered around with a Guyanese hardwood. Now, I've seen the still distilling the first time I was there, and it looks like an old ruin, basically. On top of it, they have to cover it with water because it gets very hot and it's steaming all the time. And it's also, I don't know what you call it, but it's not tight completely. So it's dripping and things are coming out of it. So it's quite a special still. I've also seen it the last time I was there. It was completely dismantled because they were changing the wooden boards around it, so you could see the inside of it. And I'm not going to tell you what it looked like because you might not want to drink anything that came from it after, but it didn't look good. Let's just say it like that. But I'm pretty sure it all adds to the flavor. They say there are only 2 wooden pot stills left in the world today, and both of them are standing at DDL. We're going to have right now from the Port Moran. The other one is a single wooden pot still called the Versailles. I've heard that people have tried to replicate them, tried to build stills similar to them, or tried to incorporate the wood in them. I've never seen them. I don't know if it works. I've seen lab reports where they've done analysis of rum coming from the 2 wooden pot stills, saying it's no different from other pot stills. And if you ask even the master blender or the master distiller, Sean Caleb from DDL, what is the difference? He can't tell you specifically either. They don't know, but they are 100% sure it makes a difference because they can taste it in their distillate. If you do an analysis of it, it doesn't show any different from other pot still characters. But when you taste it, it has a specific character. And if you've ever tried Port Moran unaged, for instance, you'll feel that special character it has. You can try them with Dirk. He has our SBS Origins that has the PM distillate, pure, unaged at 57%. And it is quite an experience because you can actually follow those flavors from the unaged all the way up to what you're drinking now. You do have some of the same flavors that even after 23 years in a wooden barrel, some of them are still there. You can still feel the character of that original distillate. The distillery itself is, for me, it was a bucket list item to cross off my list to go there. The place is legendary, and very, very few people have been able to get inside of the doors. And walking around there when I came there the first time was just extraordinary. When I came inside the gates, they basically left me alone and said, well, you need to go all the way into the back to find the guy who's showing you around. And all the way through there was with warehouses after warehouses filled with rum. So it took me a walk that should have taken 5 minutes, probably took 45 minutes before I actually came down and found the guy who was supposed to show me around. And all the time, taking pictures, just breathing it in. And even the location of the distillery, it's right next to the highway that joins the capital of Georgetown with the airport. So when you come from the airport, when you are within a couple of 100 meters from the distillery, you can smell the molasses. It's everywhere in the air. Then when you pass it, you see the large fermentation tanks, because all of their fermentation tanks are right next to the road. Half of them are closed and the other half are open. So the smell of molasses is everywhere in the air. And for me, it was amazing. I think for everyday people or normal people, it would have been hell because it doesn't always smell that nice. And it's still a residential area. There are lots of houses around it that has to live in that smell every day.
I think for us, it's heaven.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, once I found the guy that was showing me around, we started with the big column still, which is multi-column, very industrial, that puts out, well, millions of liters of rum every year. And then we went into the distillation house where all the stills are standing. And I don't know what I expected, but when you get in there, you've seen pictures of the stills one by one, but in there, they're all cramped together in a room that seems way too small. So once you're looking at the Enmore still, well, the Port Moran is right next to it. They're basically leaning up against the Savile still. They're all packed into a very, very small room. But I remember walking around in there, and The one thing that caught my eye there was that I saw a still that I'd never heard about before. Because in the still room was a pot still that I know the design of very, very well, because there was a double retort pot still standing in there. Now, the double retort pot still is what they use in Jamaica. And then the name of the still, there's a small sign on all of them stating their name. It was called DHE. So, of course, I asked him, well, what is that? And I was then told, well, DHE stands for Diamond High Ester. Okay, and what does that produce? Well, it produced Jamaican style of rum. I was like, what? Why didn't I know about this? Why did nobody know about this? Tell me more. And they have in the far back in a warehouse, far away from the road and far away from where anybody walks, they have a small fermentation house where they do open fermentation, wild fermentation, exactly as they do in Jamaica. And they produce very, very high ester rum that are made for use in blends. I was lucky enough that after we'd done the tour of the still house, we went to the warehouse where they had already prepared, I think, 20 different samples for me to try. And the warehouse keeper and the warehouse manager was there, and I couldn't forget about what I had just seen, so I had to ask him, of course, do you have any of that? And of course he did, and I was like, well, could we try it? So first he brought me a small sample, and all the samples they diluted to like 30% because they believe that makes better for tasting. And I was like, fuck, that's not what I want. Then he opened up a barrel and he gave me 10 centiliters of a 5-year-old DHE Diamond High Ester. And it is one of the best, if not the best, high ester rum I have ever had in my life. It was extraordinary. It had everything you would expect from a high ester Jamaican, and then just something more. You could taste that it was Jamaican in style, the flavors was Jamaican, but it had just a touch of something else. And I've been trying for years to get more of it. I sent them an order like every 6 months for a lot of liters without a price and say, just put your price on and send me the invoice. And they keep saying no. So yeah, when is SBS DHE? Well, I'm not sure it will ever happen, but let's see. Maybe in the future. I hope so. Maybe I do have a little of it somewhere. Let's see. But yeah, if you ever have the chance, well, go there. Guyana is an amazing country in itself. It is considered the #1 tourist destination for what they call ecotourism, specifically if you want to go into the jungle, which I don't want to do. I'm not much for bugs or anything like that, so I stayed far away from that and spent my time drinking rum, learning about rum, visiting all the old sugar factories. But if you like rum history, then it should be a must to go there. So, guys, how do you like the 1999?
I recognize that this one is quite light compared to the one we had before, and even it's 2 years longer. It stayed 2 years longer in the cask.
Yep.
I know that may depend on how the cask reacts with rum, but can you comment on if and how maybe the SWR is colored during the production?
Yes. So it's two completely very different rum, the SWR and the PM we're drinking now. PM is obviously pot still, where the SWR is a column still. And the SWR comes in two different ways. You have it completely white or water, as we call it, going into the barrel, but you also have it going into the barrel color, as you mentioned. And basically what they do is by the time of putting it into the barrel, they color the rum from the beginning. So it actually almost has this color from the beginning. when they put it into the barrel. Now, the color they use is a specific caramel that they produce themselves at the distillery. I don't know the correct words for it specifically, but you'll get the point. If you take what we call a professional alcohol caramel, something that is used for coloring, it has what I guess we could call an intensity of 60,000. So that's how intense the color is when you add it to your rum. The one they use at DDL that is produced by themselves is closer to 30,000, so only about half of that. The sugar content is also actually higher in that. So you could actually say that this has a little bit of added sugar. I think if we did a test on this, it would probably come back with maybe 2 grams of sugar per liter. So it's way too little to actually give you a sweet taste. But of course it has an alteration on the flavor, because there is also some flavor in that caramel. So it does make a difference. And I think you can actually taste it a little bit when you have that very first sip, when it hits your tongue, because you get a sort of a taste of like what I call bitter or burnt caramel. I think you can feel it immediately. And if you couldn't feel it before, you'll feel it when you taste it again. It is right there. So is it wrong to do it? According to some, yes. According to some distillers, yes, it's wrong. You're altering the wrong. But is it wrong? In my opinion,
kind of tradition.
Exactly. This is Guyana distillers' tradition. This is something they've been doing for hundreds of years.
Mhm.
Why should they alter their tradition? We got to remember that where does rum come from? Well, for most of us, it comes from the Caribbean. But they've been distilling sugarcane juice long before the Caribbean. It just was never called rum. Then, when sugarcane came to the Caribbean, we started distilling. But we started distilling in so many countries at the same time. If you ask people from Barbados, of course, they say, oh, rum is from Barbados. This is where it was born. But in reality, rum was distilled in Brazil in the New World before Barbados. But at the same time, or very close to it, they also started distilling in Jamaica, in Guyana, and a lot of the other colonies. So why should we trust one country over the other when it comes to what is right or wrong? We have to respect the traditions of some countries. And here there is a tradition with color, because it's not only the Skeldon mark that is colored. There are several of old Guyanese marks, rum marks, that are colored. Even some of the marks that you know, the PM mark that you're drinking right now, some of these are colored from birth as well when they're put into a barrel. We did a bottling of an old PM a couple of years ago, and you could see the color. It was very, very dark brown. It was also colored from the beginning. It is a tradition that they've been adding to several of their marks throughout history. So is it right or wrong? Well, that's up to you. In the end, I think what matters is, well, how does it taste? And do we know what's inside? Well, we know what's inside. Good. Then how does it taste? Well, for me, it tastes extraordinary. And that is what matters. Then I'll probably have a look at the price and say, okay, what's the price of it? And if that corresponds to the quality of the juice, then here, take my money. There were some, who asked the question about, sorry, who was it? Joost, it was you who asked about the color. Yeah. There was a couple of stories not that long ago that DDL had stopped with the use of this color in rum. I can tell you, if you ever heard that story, that it's not true. They are still doing it. I have some samples on the way of some different marks with the color added and without the color. So I have a chance to try them side by side. So basically the same mark, unaged, one with color and one without color. That is made with their own caramel color or their own caramel blend, whatever we want to call it. So hopefully in about a month, I'll be able to taste that. So if you want to know what the feeling is, well, you can text me after and I'll tell you.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, it is. So, guys, that was the first half.
I would like to comment. Sorry, I would like to
Yes.
comment on the PM.
Yes, go for it.
What I recognize that the aftertaste is quite different than what I get from the nose and from my palate. And
Yeah.
there's something like I don't have something to compare it to find the right words, but the first thing that came to my mind was something like I know from a whiskey. So something like
Phenol.
yeah, something like that. Thanks.
The wood probably, yeah, will give you that feeling.
Yeah, but it's quite interesting how this PM develops from the nose till the final end.
They can be quite different from nose to the actual rum. Yeah, definitely. It doesn't always correspond to what your nose and your mouth tells you. But did you like it?
Yes, I like it a lot, but usually I stick more to the Jamaican, and that's the reason why I like the Worthy Park a lot. It was much more to my likings, and of course the SWR. That's
okay,
extraordinary.
Good. Well, I look very much forward to what you all think about the next one, because for me that is very, very unique and might play some tricks on you.
And the one thing you have to try a lot of things. Otherwise, you never understand what is happening outside in the rum world.
Exactly.
That's the only way. Taste, 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 and maybe what you find good in the beginning of your rum career, it's maybe not you like after 5 years. So, and I can say it for myself, and I think Joshua can say the same. And I know some people was starting with totally different products. So yeah, that's a big journey, and that's a fun part.
It is. Well, I remember when I started drinking rum, it was, well, rum similar to Sacaba, Diplomatico, Millonario, and our own Patridom Esclavo. And then, you move on, you go through an evolution. I always use the example of boys and beer to that. But guys, if you think back when you had your first beer with your mates, with your friends, you were probably, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. And you were sitting there cheering, having fun. And you were all, this beer is fucking amazing. It's the best thing I ever had. And you were all lying, because in reality, that beer tasted terrible. But you all said it because you wanted to be cool. Now, probably a lot of you drink beer today and you actually like it. But that's because you learn to drink it. You learn to like it. It's the same thing for most people with things like coffee or red wine. It's not something you enjoy the first time you taste it. And it's the same thing with a lot of rum. If I take I love drinking unaged rum, white rum, specifically Jamaican rum, high ester rum. If I bring like a bottle of rum bar overproof to a tasting or give a shot to a bunch of my friends, they all gonna.
To me on your first day, Jesus Christ, I hated it.
They'll spit it out and say, "What the hell are you serving us?" Because they don't understand it. It's something you have to learn to appreciate many times. And it's the same with rum. I started drinking a lot of sweetened rum. And if you go back further, of course, I started with Bacardi and similar with Coke, then moved on to our dear Captain and Coke. And then I started learning a little bit about rum, and I was drinking sweetened rum. But slowly, your mind, or if you keep drinking it, then you want more. You want more flavor, you want more taste, you want more experience. You just want more. So you keep trying new things, and you'll find other things that you start to enjoy. So I stopped drinking sweetened rum many years ago, and drinking highest Jamaican rums, or only saying, well, don't give me that 40% shit. It has to be minimum 50%, otherwise it's shit. And I did that for many, many years. And well, I became a rum geek, of course. And that's what we do. But I've actually started going back a little bit again. I know what I like. I like high proof Jamaican, high proof Guyana. Those are my favorites. Then there's a lot of other rum I drink as well. But I've tried in the past year to drink some sweetened rum again. To drink some Zacapa, drink some Diplomatico. And
no fucking way.
Well, I can actually appreciate a glass every now and then in the right atmosphere. Like if I'm at my parents' house, they love some of the sweetened rums, I do. So they'll always offer, let's have a small glass with our coffee. Well, sure. And I don't hate it. It still tastes good. Can't deny that the taste is good. It's sweet. We all fucking love sugar. We can't help that. That's in our blood. We like sugar. So if I, clear my head and think about it, say to myself, this is not rum, or this is something different.
Yeah.
Then I actually enjoy the glass. I don't enjoy it as much as I would the Worthy Park, which is at, or the Skeldon, but I still enjoy it. I can't run from that fact that it is actually still good liquid. Then we can argue if it's right, if it's legal to add the amount of sugar. We can argue all of that. But if we just put all of that away and just drink it as the liquid is, well, shit, it still tastes good.
Like you, Dirk.
It's not my preferred thing to drink, but it still tastes good and I can still drink it. And it's good to do that every now and then. Just come back to basics like that. But guys, it's time to rinse the glass. Have a sip of water. And we'll get ready for the next Guyana. We're going to stay with the Port Morant, but we're going to be drinking now the SBS Guyana PM 2020. So the rum you're going to be having now is only 2 years old. But we did something different with this one. Because where all the rums you've been trying today, they have been aged in ex-bourbon casks. Then this has aged for 2.5 years in American oak as well, white oak. But this is a virgin cask. So a cask that's never been used before, that's received a heavy burn inside of it. So even though this looks kind of dark, it is only 2.5 years old. And the color is 100% natural. There hasn't been done anything to this rum at all. It's bottled at 66.4%, a total of 330-ish bottles. And for me, this is an experience. Now, we had 2 casks of this one, and I bottled one of them for a client a couple of months ago, and then we bottled this one for SBS. And I remember when I tried it 6 months ago, it basically blew me away, because we're drinking something that's 2.5 years old, but it tastes closer to something that's 15 years old. And I remember I had a couple of guests at my warehouse just after the summer holidays, and they are 2 major rum geeks. I'm not going to mention their names because there's a good chance that all of you will know the people I'm talking about. So I won't say the names, but I gave them this blind to taste it. Now, I was quite surprised because both of them said Guyana. And then then my next question was, of course, what do you think about the age? And the first one said 15 years old, and the other one started arguing. 15? No, that's minimum. This is closer to 20. And then I started laughing, of course, and I showed them what they were really drinking. But this, for me, this actually tells you what we're doing and what we're doing with SBS, because we're doing quite a lot of experiments, specifically with casks, with different sizes of cask, and with different kinds of charring and toasting, and of course also with different finishing or double maturation in different kinds of cask. Now, virgin oak is something we've implemented a couple of years ago and that we're using heavily, because I believe, and I think we proved it, that if you have a heavy rum, a powerful rum, a rum with a lot of flavor, and you add that into the virgin oak cask that has a lot of flavor to give, you have a perfect marriage, because the rum is so grateful for the wood and it extracts so much flavor very, very quick, that we actually had some rum. We did a bottling, Dirk, for the GRF, for the German Rum Fest at some point as well. We've done bottlings that were 6 months old from virgin oak, and they are extraordinary. I have, whoa, shit. I'm gonna have one now because I don't have that bottle with me, but I have that.
It's a very, very nice one.
It's a very nice one.
I have one or two here.
For the German Rum Fest, the one that got cancelled, unfortunately. But it just proves that how important cask management is, and a good cask.
I remember when I starting my traveling, and so the most masters from the distilleries, everybody was saying, so don't use virgin oak because it gives too much input of the wood in a very short time. So when you're thinking about today, doesn't make sense. It's playing with virgin oak, it's very nice, very cool, and it's always surprising.
Yeah,
but
it is.
I had never a surprise was a bad result.
No, I've never had anything bad from it as well, and we have quite a lot of virgin oak casks in our warehouse. I haven't tried anything that's turned bad at all. I think the oldest one we have is maybe 5 years old, and we might at some point have to either change the cask or bottle it, because maybe at some point it will take too much flavor, but we haven't experienced that yet. And we got to remember, just take the bourbon industry. All bourbon is aged in virgin oak, and they bottled 30-year-old bourbon, and they are not too woody. So why can't we do it with rum? Well, of course we can. It's just a matter about people doing it. We need the wood to give us good rum. The worst opposite example is Cuban rum. If you've had a Cuban rum late, you know how light they are. There is not much flavor to them. And their biggest problem is that they can't get casks anymore because they've used ex-bourbon casks for years, but they can't trade with the Americans. But they haven't received any casks in 50 years. If you try a very old Cuban rum, it has a lot more character than what a Cuban rum has today. But they can't create that character anymore because they can't get the barrels. Then they've started buying barrels in Eastern Europe, Armenian barrels, Armenian oak and Armenian wine barrels, but they're expensive. They don't have any money. So they can only buy very, very few of them and get them to Cuba. So they can't change the profile. It's too light. That's why when you drink a Cuban rum today, well, you grab for a Coke, you grab for something to mix in it because there's no flavor left. So yeah, virgin oak, I think it's extraordinary, and we will use it more and more, I'm sure. And I think we've done some beautiful rums with it. And we actually we've done a couple of Cuban rums where we took a 5-year-old Cuban rum that was very, very light, very, very boring, and we put it inside of a virgin oak cask for 2 years. And then you actually see the potential of Cuban rum, because those bottles were, in my own opinion, outstanding. They were really, really, really good. So you had a good quality product. It just needed something to help it unleash more of that flavor that was hiding somewhere in there. And the virgin oak helped that, because it's not like the oak is taking over and we're only tasting oak. We can taste that it's rum we are drinking, and you still keep the flavor of the original distillate when we're trying it. But what do you think, guys? Am I the only one in love? Well, I should be in love. It's my own product. But I think for this, I am generally surprised what just a barrel can do sometimes.
It's an amazing taste, but I would not have thought directly that this is Guyana.
Oh, fair enough. What do you other guys think? Come on. Don't be shy. You're allowed to unmute yourself and talk to me. I'm not that scary.
Sometimes.
Andreas, trau dich.
I find it's a good one. So it's young but very tasty. Some wood flavors. So I like it.
Good.
I have already drunk it in a cocktail.
Yeah.
So it was amazing because it has a little bit of dirty flavors from Guyana, and was very nice.
Very good to hear. Joost, how about you? Do you like it?
Yes, I like it a lot. I just tasted once more a few seconds ago. And once again, there's a surprise in the end. I got flowers.
Yeah.
So this is like tasting flowers.
I have at the end now. I have, for example, have cinnamon.
Yeah.
Cinnamon is one of the flavors, and it remembers me a little bit to molasses.
Yeah.
But on the same time, you have a lot of fruity aromas exploding. And yeah. I think you have a little bit the DNA of Guyana.
I agree. I find the cinnamon as well in there, in this one specifically. Good. But yeah, guys, I'm glad you like it, because we will continue to do a lot more virgin oak in the future. So there will be more things like this coming, and of course a lot of high ester rums from the virgin oak as well. And I think it was Nikolaus earlier that shouted out for DOK. Don't worry, we have plenty of DOK barrels as well.
Perfect.
Let's rinse our glasses and rinse our mouth. And well, Nikolaus, you missed it, but we were talking about DOK. But let's rinse our glasses, and we will jump into rum number 7. We'll go back to Jamaica, and we will have the Jamaica.
Sorry, number 7 is number 7 is the Fiji.
Yes.
Sorry, number 7 is what?
Number 7 is the Fiji.
Ah, okay. Well, then I changed them around here. So, guys, we're going to be drinking SBS Fiji 2004. Is it the Jamaica after?
Yes.
Right.
Okay, good. Then I'll change my list here. So, guys, instead of Jamaica in the Caribbean, we are going to the Pacific Ocean. We're going to Fiji. Basically, completely opposite side of the world, but not opposite when we talk about flavor. So we're going to have a 2004 bottled at cask strength, 68.3%, 210 bottles in total. Now, Fiji, I would say, has not been famous for rum. There started in the past few years to come quite a lot of rum from Fiji with independent bottlers like us. And of course, also because of plantation. Unfortunately, plantation means that the rest of us can't get barrels anymore from Fiji because plantation made a sort of contract that gives them the right to everything that comes from the distillery outside of the distillery's own brand, which is not that interesting to drink, which is more like spiced and flavored rum. So we got to enjoy the few barrels that are still out there, and here's one of them. The funny thing about the distillery in Fiji is that, well, it's gone through a crazy history, and for many years it was actually owned by Coca-Cola. But even with Coca-Cola as the managing directors and the owners of the company, they have actually made some extraordinary rum. This is a pot still distillate, and their pot still is as well a double retort pot still. So the same style as they use in Jamaica. And in a lot of the Fiji rums, you can actually taste let's call it the Jamaican element in them. You can get some of the same feelings you get from mid to low ester Jamaican rums. You can get some of the same flavors in the Fiji. Though it has its own style, it has a lot of familiarity with Jamaica. But give it a try. I'm still drinking Jamaica, by the way. I don't have the Fiji either, but
okay. But you're right. You have a little bit the nose and the mouth feeling of Jamaica.
Yeah.
But the fruitiness is different to Jamaica.
It is.
It's not like the overripe bananas and things like that. It's of course exotic. Yeah. But it's a little bit different.
It is different, and I think it's probably due to their fermentation and the yeast strains that they use. They're completely different. So it takes the fermentation in a completely different direction with different flavors. But then they use still they do long fermentation on some of their marks, and they also use the double retort. So you do get some of the same flavors, just different.
Yep.
You still have the fruitiness. You still have some of them are high ester, but just different. But you can feel it's not like Jamaica and Fiji are brothers, but they might be cousins basically in their rum at least.
Yeah, and I have had some talks with guys from the distillery, and they told me so there's one big difference.
Yep.
So I don't know it's true or not, but maybe I can. Yeah, maybe it's true. But what they're saying is one of the big difference is the climate. So the angel share we have in the Fijis is around 30, 60, 18%.
Yeah.
So it's much more than we have in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And that's given an impact.
Yeah, of course it does. It makes a huge difference. But even in Jamaica, they have highly different angel share depending on where the distillery is located.
Yeah.
And it makes a significant difference in the flavors in the end. But yeah, I think it's a new rum country to the European market, and I hope we get to see a lot more rum coming from them in the future. And I do hope that Plantation will bottle some more single vintage, single casks, and other interesting stuff from them, because they did their standard bottle, the small stubby bottle with Fiji. And it's drinkable, but I think for people like us, it's not really that interesting. Yeah. We'd probably use it in cocktails or as shots or something else. But it's a distillery that has so much potential.
Yes, absolutely.
The rum.
And interesting, they have both. They have the column and a pot still, so they can work with both.
They do both. I don't know, Dick, do you have their other bottlings, their own bottlings like Ratu and Bati and the show? Yeah. Now, if you try them, you can try that's commercial rum.
It's commercial rum, yeah.
Some of them are heavily sugared, some of them are flavored as well. I remember we had one of them in the calendar a few years ago as well, and it's more like a liqueur than an actual rum.
And they work in this case. They are working with we are a small group, so they're working with chips for standard bottlings.
Yep.
So they use bourbon casks. Yeah, what else?
Yep.
But they play with burnt coconut shells. They fire the barrels with it, and then they give let's say a finish for maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. But they work with chips in the most of the normal ranges.
Exactly. And guys, if you don't know what chips is, it's basically small wooden pieces. So you take small wood pieces and you put it into either just inside the barrel, or you put it into a big tank and add the rum, and then you can get a lot of flavor from the oak very, very quick.
Yeah, I'm very happy we're not working in the wine business, because in the wine business, chipping it's a normal way.
It's normal. They don't talk about it, but it's very normal.
Yeah.
They also have liquid tannins that they had in the wine.
But with an alcohol in this proof, it's very, very difficult to work with chips. So 1 hour too long, it kills everything. So
you fuck it up immediately. I have chips in our warehouse as well, that I bought some time ago from different barrels. And don't worry, it's not going to be bottled as SBS at any point. But no, we bought it to do experiments with, because we want to see how it works, as well as we also have bought a number of different caramel colors to work with, to see how does it have an effect on flavor. And some of them does, of course, but most of them you can't feel a difference. And we also, me and Thomas went out, one of our business partners went out to a baker supplier at some point and bought essence of different things like orange, vanilla, all of that. And you can actually create a bottle of AH Riese in about 5 minutes.
yeah, absolutely.
You just need a bottle of very, very light white rum. You need a lot of sugar and a little bit of color and some flavor. And
maybe that's the reason it's not longer called rum.
Exactly. But you'd be surprised how far you can get with flavors and sugar sometimes.
But if you look at the chat, so the amazing part, and it's not the first time I have that, everybody says, so, wow, the alcohol is very smooth. It's absolutely in a balance. It's not aggressive.
No.
Yeah, it's a good job.
And you got to remember, this is actually the strongest rum in the tasting at 68.3%.
Yeah.
This is the one with the highest alcohol. We're close to 70% of alcohol. But you can always taste that. Of course, when we're drinking cask strength rum, you are supposed to feel the alcohol. But you can always feel if you have a high quality or you have a poor quality of alcohol. Just if you go down to your local Lidl or Aldi, you pick up their bottom shelf vodka at 37.5%. You go home and you take a shot of that. It's like getting slapped in the face. It's sharp, it burns, it's just terrible. Then you take a good distillate. You can do it white and drink it at 80%. You're going to feel the power of the alcohol. You're going to feel a burn. But when you drink it, it's smooth, it's easy, it's fruity, it's tasteful. You'll only have the burn. And that is the difference between a high quality and a low quality alcohol. That's also why you can get something like this at 68 and you don't really feel the alcohol like that. Of course, it's there. we can't hide 68%, but you can feel the difference between a high quality and a low quality, basically.
Yeah. And the reason, so maybe something is wondering why we're going so wild. The reason is, for me, that's a little bit refreshing now, because the next 3 incomings are, they are monster. So that was the last chance to get out.
Yeah, exactly. It is only going to get crazy from here, but I'll say we'll start off lightly, and after the light beginning, I'm going to try to scare you away immediately. But guys, you can rinse your glass, and we'll take a light beginning to the end of the evening, And we will now take the Jamaica, the MMW 2010, 264 bottles, bottle at 64.7%. Now, this comes from a distillery called Clarendon. MMW stands for Money Musk Wedderburn. And this is what they would call a medium heavy pot still distillate. The specific mark comes in with esters between 290 to 300 ester. This rum, it's 12 years old. It's aged for 11 years at the Inchwood Aging Warehouse in Jamaica. And then the last year, it stood here in Denmark before we bottled. It's a cask that we picked up ourselves. We picked it out ourselves as well from the warehouse. So I really hope you like it. We liked it a lot when we chose it anyway. But give it a try. Clarendon is probably the distillery in Jamaica that gets, I'd say, the least amount of publicity. It's owned by NRJ, which stands for National Rums of Jamaica, which in turn is owned 1/3 by the Jamaican government, 1/3 by DDL in Guyana, and 1/3 by Maison Ferrand or Plantation. NRJ owns 2 distilleries. It's the Long Pond Distillery and the Clarendon Distillery. The Clarendon Distillery is only owned 73% by NRJ, and the last 27% is owned by Diageo, the largest conglomerate of spirits in the world. It is an amazing distillery to visit because it combines the new and the old. Once you get there, the first thing you see is a huge multi-column still standing out front that produces millions and millions of liters. Most of those liters go to Diageo, and they go to the production of Captain Morgan, which we all know. But if you go behind it, then you will see they have 2 large double retort pots still standing in there as well. And they do fermentation, same way as Long Pond, same way as Hampden, same way as they do at New Yarmouth. Open fermentation in big wooden vats. You'll never find pictures of that because very few people get to go there. There's no visitor center, there are no official tours. You need to come there specifically for business to be allowed to see it. But one thing that's always fun when you go to these places is that you will actually see how Jamaican fermentation takes place when we talk about high ester, because it's very, very different from anywhere else in the world. Now, fermentation is the beginning of the rum. Well, first we have the sugar cane, but then the fermentation comes. Fermentation is in most parts of the world. It's molasses, water, and yeast put inside of a metal tank and put there to rest for anywhere between 18 to 36 hours. During that time, the yeast will eat away of the leftover sugar and the molasses, and that turns into alcohol. And after 18, 36 hours, we end up with a wash, a wine, a beer, whatever we call it, depending on where we are in the world, that is about somewhere between 5 to 8%. This, the mash wine beer, we then put into our still. We will then start to heat it up again, and eventually we create rum. Now, when we are in Jamaica and we are trying to create heavy, medium pot still rum with high esters, then the fermentation is slightly different.
Do you think that's a typical Jamaican profile?
I would say, yeah. But what is typical Jamaican?
That's the point I will go for.
Exactly, because that very, very much depends on the distillery. Yeah. Because they have highly different profiles. Just take, a high ester Hampton and put it up against an Appleton. It's 2 completely different rums. You can't even compare them. You can compare them because it's rum. That's it. But when we're talking about fermentation and fermentation for something like this, then we take our molasses, we take our yeast, we take our water again, we put it inside basically a huge wooden barrel of thousands of liters. There's no lid on top. It's completely open. Then we start to add cane juice as well. The pure cane juice is poured in. Then we take cane, sugar cane, break it, and throw it in as well. And then we leave it for 3 to 4 weeks. They're completely open. The bacteria from the cane gives a wild fermentation element into it. We add the cane juice, which has acids in them as well, which speeds up the fermentation as well. And if we want to create very heavy rum, we will as well use a little bit of dunder, which is left over from our previous distillation. And if we are at Long Pond, New Yarmouth, or Hampton, we would also add a little bit from our muck pit. A muck pit is a completely different beast. We're not going to chat about it today because there is no muck in this one. So we're going to stay away from that. But it is a creation of flavors that you can only do in certain parts of the world. Now, we tried to do it in Denmark at a small distillery years and years ago, and we created something. I don't know what I'm going to call it. It was weird. But you would never be able to make it in Europe because once the Food and Health Department came to visit you, they would shut your doors immediately, burn down your house, and put you in jail if they saw what was going on. It is filthy. It smells and it stinks. When you look at inside of these fermentation tanks, on the first and second day, you can see it starts to slowly bubble. There's small bubbles coming up all the time. On the third, fourth day, it starts to come alive because all of that bacteria that's on the cane, that grows and actually turns into maggots. You have small white worms swimming around everywhere in the top. Around day 5 and 6, they die, and they.
Joshua, look at Nina's face.
And they start to become part of the rum.
But
when you're 10 days in.
Sorry, there was one comment before. Someone was at Hampton, and he was saying, so if you have seen that one, everything is cool. It's dirty.
It is filthy. Around day 10, you will see like on the top of the tank, it starts to create like a crust. Like there's no bubbles anymore. Like the surface starts to become a little hard. When you're into 3 or 4 weeks, you can see mold starting to form on the top as well. It starts to become green, starts to become white. That's when you know the flavor is right and it's ready to distill, basically. But what does all of this create? Well, it creates flavors. It creates esters. And esters is a good thing in many things. Esters is another word of flavor. It's basically molecules. And there are many, many different kinds of esters. In Jamaican rum, we usually only focus on one. It's called ethyl acetate. And that is the one we measure, always. And the flavors of that is what gives you the fruity notes, basically. That's it. That is where the fruit comes from. Now, to compare it, well, we have around 300 esters in this one. If we would ever measure a Bacardi, we would maybe have 5 esters. Most of the rums we've been drinking today, except for the Jamaican we had earlier, they are only about 20, maybe 30 esters. So they are very, very far from what we're drinking here. I don't know if you could die, Christian.
No, everybody is shocked.
But I'm not sure it would be healthy to drink it. There are a lot of people arguing if it's actually healthy to drink high ester rum as well. I don't think we'll be in trouble for it, but you never know. If you drink a couple of bottles per day, you might, but then you'd probably die anyway from alcohol. So,
yeah.
But they made in Jamaica, they made a rule that you're not allowed to export anything about 1,600 ester. And the guys, I have to say sorry, but it's your fault. It's the fault of the Germans.
That's true.
You used to be the biggest importers in the world of Jamaican rum. But then in the beginning or end of the 1800s and the beginning of the 1900s, there was a Jamaican chemist created special yeast strains that could create very high ester rums. And they started producing them in Jamaica. Unfortunately, all of a sudden, they saw the Jamaican rum sales to Germany that had been going like this, it started going like that. Because some clever industrial Germans found out, well, if we take a bottle and fill it up with 95% vodka and just add 5% of the high ester rum, it tastes like a high ester Jamaican rum. And they made what we all know as rum verschnitt. And Jamaican rum plummeted in sales. So the Jamaican government went in and made a cap and said, you're not allowed to produce or sell, export anything about 1,600. But when you produce high ester rum, it's uncontrollable. You can't control it. So we talked a little bit, and somebody mentioned DOK in the comment earlier. Now, DOK is a specific mark from the Hampton distillery that comes in at around 1,600 esters. But the distiller, the master distiller at Hampton, he might say, well, today I'm going to create DOK. But he has no idea where it ends, because once you've done your fermentation and you start distilling it, you don't know if you end at 1,000 esters or you end at 5,000 esters. You need to measure it after. So if he creates something at 5,000 esters, then what he does is basically he blends it, dilutes it. So he will take the OWH mark, for instance, that's like 40 esters, and he'll just pour that in until he gets down to 1,600. This also means that DOK does not always taste exactly like the same, because it's always usually blended with something else to hit the ester mark. Now, I've tried more than 1,600 esters at Hampton years ago at their lab, where I tried, I think it was 3,500 esters.
I had the chance to 2,600.
Yeah.
And it was killing me.
It's a crazy experience.
Yeah.
It's hard to describe, but I tried it in the laboratory after I tried, I don't know, 20 other rums, but it's like, it's killing your mouth. Like,
yeah. It's like a little bit too much chili.
Yeah, it kills your palate completely.
Yeah.
It kills your tongue. Yeah.
So
No sipper, no.
Definitely not a sipping rum when it comes in like that.
No chance.
But I have no doubt if we could buy it, we could easily sell it, because there's so many people out there who would love to try it.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe we get lucky one day and we get to steal some of it away from somebody. But guys, what do you think of our MMW, our Clarendon? Do you like it?
Yeah.
Mixed feelings, at least from you, Andreas. The rest of you are very quiet.
Yes. Fruity notes.
Yep.
Typically Jamaica. Yeah, it's a good sipping rum.
Yeah, good.
But I have a question for you, Andreas, because I know a little bit more about Andreas, and he was on holidays in Thailand.
Yes.
And he was bringing some white rums.
Yes.
Which ones? Shillong Bay or?
Yes, Shillong Bay.
Yeah, yeah. So we have some. I think we have the line at the bar.
Yeah.
Maybe you collected, bring that home, but we had a chance to try a lot of them.
Yeah.
So, to be honest, I don't like it, because in my opinion, it's not a bad alcohol, but I'm missing the soul. There's no heart, there's no soul, there's nothing. It's just alcohol.
Yeah.
It's not a big flavor profile. So when you know, compare this, so the Shillong Bay and this one, what do you think now?
It's a huge difference. Absolutely, I agree. It is how to say, it's one-dimensional, the Shillong Bay one.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, it's nothing special. It's 40%. It's yeah, And it's another style because it's from sugarcane directly.
Cane juice, yeah.
So, but yeah.
Well, I know the two owners of Shillong Bay. It's a married couple. They are originally from France, so they're trying to make agricole in Thailand, basically.
Yeah.
And I agree, the 40% is boring. It's not worth drinking. They've done a couple of high proof versions that are different, that have a lot more flavor. I'd say the biggest problem for them is that they are a very small distillery in a country where alcohol is not something that the government likes, and you're not allowed to sell anything about 40%, basically.
Yes.
So it's tough for them to do experiments, and in the end, if you find it in Europe, it's way too expensive, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, Nina, you met the wife as well.
I didn't know she's married yet, but yeah, I met her.
Yeah. So yeah, it's decent rum, but
yeah. I think it's too expensive, unfortunately.
Yeah. But let's see. They are still a young company. Maybe we'll see something a lot more.
And Orlando is there now, Joshua.
What?
Orlando is there now. So
yeah. Yeah, my favorite cocktail shaker in the world.
Yeah, one of my customers.
And the fastest bartender.
Very fast. Yeah, still a good guy though.
Yeah. Oh well. But guys, this was our introduction to the two finals. We have two rums to go. They are both crazy. I'd say you don't even have to wash your glass anymore if you're too lazy to go get water, because it's not necessary. What we're gonna pour in your glass now is gonna kill anything that was in there before. And both of these rum come from the same distillery, and they're samples number 9 and 10. It's the Trinidad 1993 and the Trinidad 1998. Both of them are Caroni. Both of them is what we call HTR, heavy Trinidad rum. They're very, very heavy in flavor. They're classic Caronis. In whatever order you want to drink them, I'm going to leave it up to you, because sample number 9, the 93, is only 49.6%. And sample number 10, the 98, is 62.9. But sample number 9, the 1993, is the one we call the Beast. And I don't know if anybody of you have tried the Beast before. But so I'm going to try and explain it a little bit for you, and then wait with trying it until I've told you what it is. Caroni is said to have notes of like acetone, diesel, tar, things like that. Now the Beast doesn't just have notes of that. This basically tastes like a diesel truck crashed and burned, and you went out to lick the road. That's it. That is the flavors you taste here. It's pitch black, and when you pour it, try and do like that and look up in the light. It's not clear. Now, when we bottle SBS, we do a very, very gentle filtration with a big filter just to take out wooden pieces. When we bottled this, we bottled 2 bottles, and the filter was done. Nothing more came through. We changed the filter, tried again, we bottled 2.5 bottles. In the end, we had to stop filtering it because it doesn't work. I don't know what's wrong with this rum, or if something is wrong at all. This is a beast. This is weirdness in a bottle. But give it a taste and figure out if you like it. We call this the Beast number 3. We had 4 barrels of this originally. We did the first bottling, I think, about 6 years ago that we did in cooperation with Bristol Spirits from the UK. And then the last 3 we did under SBS. I'm all out of it, which I'm sorry to say, because I think I don't like it, I hate it, but I think it's very interesting rum. And I will tell you, before you taste it, I will tell you the last thing that I told all of our importers when we did the first bottling. It's a 93 vintage. It's quite cheap when you look at other Coronis, especially when it's as old as it is. And I told all of our clients and all of my importers when I sent out the price list and said, you can get these many bottles. I told them, but I'm warning you, the rum is fucking terrible. I hate it myself and I think it's undrinkable. The answer from every client was, can I get more bottles? I was like, what are you talking about? This is terrible rum. And I remember my French importer, she sent out small samples to a bunch of shops, and she had one shop who ordered 6 bottles of it, who didn't have the chance to try the sample before. When the shop owner tried the sample, he called back my importer and said, I don't want that in my shop. I want you to take them back. She said, well, sure, I'll do that. 5 hours passed. She gets another call from him. He left the case on the counter in his shop. 5 hours later, he had sold the first 5 bottles because people saw Corona. He was like, I'm gonna keep it anyway. He just made the easiest 1,000 euros of his shop he ever did. But guys, now you need to speak up. I want to know what you think about this. Stop hiding behind your computer. Stop hiding behind your muted microphone. Let me hear it.
She likes it.
First start, I will do the first. So beginning with the nose, it's quite nice. So
yep,
this is like
interesting.
Maybe it's the best thing of it, yeah. Yeah, it's licking like at soap, like in the first place. It's like licking at soap, and then it starts getting dirty.
It's dirty, by the way.
It is dirty.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy because I didn't realize how is it looking. And it's looking like yeah, something has to do with the gas station.
Yeah, it looks like, yeah, I don't know, sewage water.
Yeah.
It looks like something you're not supposed to drink.
Yeah.
Have you tried to fill it into your diesel car?
No,
I haven't, but I'm sure either it would turn into a Porsche or it would burn. I don't know.
but interesting is the nose. The nose is very fruity, so you have a lot of plummery and things like that. So that's built. So you like to taste it, but yeah. So if you're looking in the glass, you have to think about really will I do or not. So the nose is really interesting, and not in a bad way. The taste is very
Special.
But
Joshua, I was wondering what was
Yeah.
clogging the filters. Do you know? So what caused the clogging?
I have no idea. I have no idea at all what caused the filters to clog, because the filters we use, you can't you can't see what they catch really, because it's the filters are like well, shit, this is maybe the best way to show it. This is a candle, but the filters are basically formed and look like this.
Mhm.
And the rum passes through the inside, so you can't really see what it catches. And it hides basically as well what it catches. If the particles are small, you can't see it. You can only see the wooden pieces if they're there. So I have no idea.
Maybe it's better to not know.
I think probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I think something. I have no doubt something is wrong with this. It was not supposed to be like this. something is wrong. What's wrong with it? I don't know.
Yeah, definitely something is wrong. You know, we made a bottling of the Gardel from 1983.
Yep.
Which is the Beasts, but so it doesn't look like that, and it's complicated in the taste. But here's going something wrong for sure. Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I wish I could tell you what's wrong with it, or what happened to it, or what it is that creates those flavors and creates that look of the rum in your glass. But I have no idea.
Is it fermentation or distillation?
I think,
What do you think?
I don't think so. I think it could be the casks. It could be the cask that there's something wrong with, but I have no idea.
That would be my guess too, that there's something wrong with the casks.
Yeah.
I think it's a domino effect. I think that was from the beginning on. There was mistakes, and the one mistake was going to the next, to the next, to the next, and that's the result. And you never find out what is exact happens.
Exactly.
My
Exactly.
theory.
But Caroni is fun in general.
So I take the next.
Guys, can you hear me? Yeah. Guys, I hope you can hear me. My screen just froze a little bit.
No, everything's cool. Everything's fine.
Okay, good. But Caroni in general is weird, because we're talking about a distillery that closed 20 years ago. And it literally closed because they did shitty business. Nobody wanted to buy their rum. That's it. And now we're going completely crazy for it. Whenever a new bottle of Caroni comes on the market today, it sells for 500 euros or more. Back then, you could buy a bottle of Caroni for 30 euros and nobody wanted it. Nobody wanted it. It's the flavors of the rum community that have changed. And the people like Luca and John Barrett of Bristol Spirits created a hype and a legend around this distillery. So when the distillery closed, they had about 5,000 barrels in stock, and they tried to sell them for years, but nobody wanted to buy them. Nobody. And eventually they sold, but they were sold in a fire sale. Everybody who bought the barrels, they got them cheap. And it created a scandal in Trinidad. It's still a scandal today that people of Trinidad believe that the country got cheated because the distillery was owned by the government. But literally the people who bought this, they paid probably less than $1 per liter. And now it's selling for 500 euros a bottle. The people who got these barrels have earned millions on them ever since. Now, the people
I have
who
one
bought
bottle here. That's the famous. It's one of the Caronis, and it's the famous Shinayoa. So this bottling is made for a bar in Tokyo. And I had the chance to get 3 bottles, because I can't say where I get it from, but so he gave it me for the original price for the unverbindliche Preisempfehlung, Nina?
Recommended sale price.
Thank you.
recommended retail price.
Yeah, thank you. So I got the chance to take the bottles, and I take the bottles, and I'm not a big fan of Caroni in general. And so I cracked one of the bottles at the rum festival. I think it was the last before COVID. And some geeks come over to the booth and said, "What you're doing there? Stop! Don't crack the bottle. Do you know how expensive the bottle?" So the retail price was, if I remember right, let's say 150 euros, but it was directly come out for 600. And so I cracked all 3 bottles. So that's the rest of them. I was sharing with friends. We was just drinking. The actual price for a bottle now is 10,000 fucking euros.
What?
And you regret opening it?
Yeah. It's no problem for me. So it's a problem for the others because I can't collect them.
It's completely crazy.
Yes.
It is. It is. But number 10 is nice.
It is. And well, you know, most of the barrels went to Angostura, basically, Trinidad Distillers Limited. They bought up most of the barrels. Then a big portion was split between Luca at Velier in Italy, and a lot of them went to John Barrett in the UK from Bristol Spirits. And then small portions of barrels went to different people around the world. But there maybe, I don't know, maybe 500 barrels left in the world maximum.
What I know actually is less than 200 barrels, but still there's a lot of barrels because so the last Caroni, the last Caroni, the last Caroni.
Yep.
So there's coming more.
There is more coming for sure. And
yeah.
I know who has barrels, and I have a good idea about how many they have left. Some have been kind to tell me their number. So there will be coming Caroni for years and years. The only thing that we know for sure is the price is going to keep going like that. We bottled these two bottles you're tasting right now are the last Caroni barrels we had in our warehouse, and we have been offered more, but have basically decided not to buy more of it because, well, I think the price has become ridiculous, basically. There are very, very few rums that are worth 500 euros. When you think about what you can get for 100 euros, then 500 is completely insane. There is no liquid that's worth that much money, in my opinion. And Caroni has a special flavor. I like Caroni, but it's also a mood thing. I really have to be in the mood for a glass of Caroni before I will have a glass. But yeah, if you have spare Caroni at home, if you have something that's not too crazy in price, not a single cask, I would actually recommend make a dark and stormy with it. Pick out a good ginger beer like a Fever Tree, slice of lime, and try and make it dark and stormy with it. It is outstanding in a dark and stormy. It's really, really, really good. And I remember the last bottle that I popped open, I emptied it in one evening with 3 friends in dark and stormies. But yeah,
so what is actually the message we send out?
Third world problems.
Well, Dirk, I know you agree with me. If you want to make a good cocktail, you use a good rum.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Don't do it when you fill your house with all of your friends and you're just trying to get drunk. You do it when you're yourself, it's you and your wife, or it's you and your husband, or it's you or one of your good friends or one of your other rum companions. Then you make good cocktails with good rum, and fuck the cost sometimes. Just try it, make a cocktail with it. I remember when we did The Beast, I introduced it at a festival in Belgium, and we did daiquiris with the Beast. It was drinkable. It wasn't good, but it was drinkable.
Yeah. That's remember me, a good friend and a professional bartender came over to my bar and he was saying, so can I have a daiquiri with a black tot? So it's also a bottle was for 800 euros, something like that. And I said, of course I can make it for you, but are you sure? I said, yeah, I will taste it. So go for it. So I was building a daiquiri, make sure he paid before because it's not drinkable, it's not sexy, it's not tasty, it's nothing. After I asked him, so why? And he said, I heard something about black tot is cool, but I never drink rum in I never sipping rum in a nosing glass. So always at drinking daiquiris. So that was my experience. Crazy.
But you got to try it sometimes.
Yeah. So I'm happy he was doing and he was paying for that, because now definitely it's not working.
But you had a chance to try it and somebody else paid for it. Yeah, that's perfect way to do it.
So what you thinking about number 9 and 10? So give Joshua the fire he wish.
Yes. Come on, guys. Time to unmute again. Let's get some honest opinion.
Number 9 for me, it's the second Caroni I tried in my life, and but this is completely different, and it's very interesting, but I would not buy a bottle.
Very fair.
You have to know, interesting is the word in German you use if you like to express politely that it's kind of shit.
Not only in German.
Aber sind wir schon in so einer kleinen Runde, da wo in a small round.
Jetzt recht keine.
Yeah, then I will continue. So I'm close to Andreas, so I'm not used to drink Caroni rum. I tried 2 or 3 during my rum career, and yeah, I have to say that the Beast really is worth the name, and that's nothing I would drink even if I get it for free. But the number 10, it's quite interesting to me.
Yeah, 10 is nice.
Yes, absolutely.
It has a really nice nose. You could even try to nose it for minutes or even longer. And yeah, taste is also good.
Very good.
Yeah. But I
Yeah,
think
it's smooth in a Caroni way. It's smooth. Yeah, this one is, but you have to be in the mood for it. Like all the other extreme rums, yeah, it depends on your mood.
Yeah, it's not something for everyday drinking.
Yeah,
It is something where you have to be in the right set of mind, basically, to drink it. I completely agree.
so. Our says number 10 is good, but not one of the best Caroni. So what is your best Caroni? Which one? And the time you type or you show the picture, I think if you have some really Caroni geeks here today, they will kill us because they don't like the first and the last.
Yeah.
Because the last I like, but it's not so dirty, so they have a lot of fruitness and it's very drinkable. I like to taste everything. But what they are looking for is a dirty gas station.
Yeah.
All these word things. And the first one is too heavy, and the second one is too fruity. So
Yeah.
I think in this world it's not really working.
No, the Beast is too dirty, and number 10 is not dirty enough for the Caroni drinkers.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like the last one a lot because it has that fruity note as well.
Yeah.
And for me, it makes it a lot more drinkable. It's something that I can drink far more than one of those really, really dirty Caronis. Then
Yeah.
I enjoy this a lot more. It's something that I can drink more on an, well, not every day, but more like that than a regular one.
I don't think number 10 is too demanding. It's a nice one.
Mhm.
Fairly accessible.
Good.
I
What
didn't
about
have
you,
the
Eva?
chance
Did
to
you-
try 93.
Oh,
Did
sorry.
you find the bottle, Eva?
Sorry?
I think he's typing.
Yeah.
He looks concentrated.
Very concentrated. So either he's watching the football match or
So, but at the end, So for me, first, thank you for Joshua and Nina doing that with us together. Interesting, what I have learned again is you have to try a lot of things to understand the boat. And
Don't keep doing tastings.
pardon?
Keep doing the tasting.
So it's very interesting. It's a tasting. It's up and down. It's up and down, or whatever. And we can do the same next week, but we give them a different lineup. Maybe it's a different experience. So, what is your favorites? Maybe not one. So, what was type or speak?
For me, the number 4, and I need a bottle.
Okay, you know
Do
where
you have one?
I think so, but I'm not sure. But yeah, you will find it faster than me. You can look at the shop.
I will do.
Or you can call. No, Marsh has a bar. So, but yeah, we find it out. So number 4. Okay, Amazon said Vellier Cherry Casks. Single bottle from 2018. Okay, maybe I never tried it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that one is either, but yeah.
So Nico's favorites: number 1, 3, 5. Number 1 and 4. Number 4. Come on, there's more. Number 4 and 3.
Very mixed.
5, 4, 4. Wow. Yeah, Skeldon.
Yeah. Well, it is usually a favorite.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
There's a rum for everyone.
Always.
Yeah, it looks like.
Always. But guys, are there any questions now that you've tried all of them? Any questions here at the end?
I guess the Skeldon is sold out, isn't it?
I think it was a first sold out because just for the mark.
Yeah.
And the moment it came online, it was sold out after 10 minutes.
I don't have any left. Sorry.
The only point was we saved 1 bottle each to make the tasting, because we like the idea to share with people who are interested to make this one.
Yeah. It's always a good idea with
Yeah.
these limited editions. I agree.
Yeah. And the question for me is when we do the next one.
Oh, well, next release will be about around the 1st of April. So
Okay, deal.
so if it's another SBS tasting, then it should be around then.
Okay, nice.
I don't have a technical question, but I would like to give you a compliment, Joshua. It was really fun to listen to you, and of course, I got a lot of information I didn't know before. And yeah, I hope that you will join the next tasting in April.
I'm glad to hear you enjoyed it. I think this is the second one I'm doing here with Dirk and Nina for SBS, and I will be happy to do the next one and I'm sure me and the guys can find a date for that as well.
Yeah, please do more. The only thing I was missing were some of the pictures you've mentioned where you were in the distilleries you visited. I would have loved to see them.
Yeah,
but
well, we can.
That's everything that was missing.
I think we had it in the first tasting. We had
did in the
pictures.
first one.
This time we decided, or we had a discussion about, and we decided this time we don't do that. But yeah, in the future or for the next time, we can, or you can, please show.
We can include that next time again for sure. Not a problem.
Would be great.
Yeah, it makes, I use a lot of stories from the distilleries and from what I've seen. So specifically from, at least from Guyana and Jamaica, it makes a lot of sense because I talk a lot about it. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
thanks a lot. Very, very insightful.
You're very welcome, guys. You're very welcome.
For me, thanks as well. Was amazing and a lot of information.
Good to hear.
Yes, I enjoyed it as well.
Very good. Well, thank you, everyone. If there are no more questions, then yeah.
Have a nice evening. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have a nice weekend and have a one fun part. So Nina has to go tomorrow to Denmark because they have on Saturday a Christmas party. And maybe you know Joshua or not, but maybe you realized a little bit this person. My question was how many days it's a party. But
Luckily, only one.
yeah, have fun.
Yeah, well, some of our colleagues arrived already today, so some of them are already hitting the bars. And my phone has been lighting up during the tasting. When are you done? Are you coming to join us? We're here now. Now we're at this bar.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I'm glad I only arrived Saturday.
Yeah. Well,
Oh
I'm
no,
gonna
I don't.
stay,
That's tomorrow. Yeah.
but let's see what happens. I'm gonna take it
Yeah.
easy tonight, but probably tomorrow it'll go crazy. And then
You know,
Saturday even
I have
worse.
some agents, they will report.
I know.
Is Bodo the spy?
Okay, so thank you everybody for a nice tasting.
Thank you,
Nice
Joe, for
evening.
doing that sampling for us.
Thank you, guys. Pleasure to be here. Have a great evening, and yeah, I hope you won the match tonight. I have no idea.
No,
Oh,
we
I
lose
don't
and then
know.
we are out.
We're out.
We're
Yes.
out?
I'm not sad.
Okay.
Life will go on.
Ah, well,
Yeah, so I don't start crying now. But yeah,
Pura vida.
excuse to drink more rum.
yeah,
Absolutely.
that's good reason. Okay, so have a nice weekend.
Thank
You,
guys.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye
Bye bye, guys. So, Dirk. Und du guckst dann nochmal nach so einem SWR.
Ach scheiße, das Bier ist auch schon leer. Ja, guck ich nach.
Ja, dann viel
Jetzt
Spaß.
macht der Bodo auch wieder die Kamera.
Ja, ich wollte
Die ganze
gerade
Zeit Fußball geschaut, der Arsch.
Oh, ihr war gerade mal weg.
Ich muss mal das Video stoppen. Fuck. Okay, das muss ich nachher noch schneiden.